Kamala Harris traveled to Guatemala, and while she was there, she gave a speech. This part of the speech that I'm about to show you went viral. It went viral for pretty obvious reasons. She's talking about immigration, particularly illegal or undocumented immigration. Let's see what she had to say.
And I want to emphasize that the goal of our work is to help Guatemalans find hope at home. At the same time, I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border. There are legal methods by which migration can and should occur. But we, as one of our priorities, will discourage illegal migration. And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. So let's discourage our friends, our neighbors, our family members from embarking on what is otherwise an extremely dangerous journey.
So I'm going to respond to that in a second. Let me just give you some specific numbers here. This is from Axios. The number of migrants illegally crossing the U.S. Mexico border this fiscal year is already the most since 2006. That's 2006 is just before the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession. That's when the number plummeted. With 4 months left to go, according to preliminary Customs and Border Protection data obtained by Axios, the numbers quantify a lingering problem. Nearly 900,000 migrants were stopped by Border Patrol from October 1st to May 31st. There were also more than 170,000 apprehensions last month, in line with 20-year records set in March and April. In addition, there continue to be significant numbers of migrants from more distant nations such as Ecuador, Venezuela, Cuba, and Haiti, the data shows. The majority of border crossers continue to come from Mexico, more than 40%, and Northern Triangle countries like Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. So, listen, keep it real. Those numbers are astronomical. 900,000 migrants stopped by Border Patrol from October 1st to May 31st, and 170,000 apprehensions last month. 20-year records. So, first, the obvious point. The U.S. needs to stop the drug war. Needs to stop the drug war. One of the main reasons why people are fleeing here is they're escaping drug war violence. They don't want to live in absolutely devastated communities ravaged by gang violence effectively. And there were numbers, I forget which place, I think it was El Salvador, but I'm not sure. There were some places that are more dangerous than the Iraq War at the height of the Iraq War. That's how dangerous these places are. That's what we're talking about with many of them. And so you're really in no position to lecture unless and until the U.S. stops doing the things that are leading to the problem in the first place. You can't, in part, cause the problem and then turn around and blame people for trying to escape it. You have to fix the problem first and foremost. So end the drug war, end the drug war, end the drug war. That's obvious. The other thing is, stop with the disastrous trade deals. Now listen, to be fair, I don't know how much the Guatemala situation is related to a trade deal because I don't know the specifics of the U.S. trade situation with Guatemala. So I don't know if that one pertains to this specific country, but in general, yes, if we stop the disastrous trade deals, then people wouldn't be fleeing from economically dilapidated places. And then also, elephant in the room, the U.S. has a record of supporting coups all throughout Latin America. I mean, it's like rarely discussed, but it is a giant and very recent part of our history. So, I mean, we've overthrown democratic governments and put dictators in with a lot of these countries, and then, like, we're surprised when people try to escape their horrendous living circumstances. Kind of absurd. Kind of absurd. So, in other words, we need to control what we control. Stop the drug war, end the disastrous trade deals, stop supporting coups. That's the gist of what we should be doing first and foremost. Now, after we do those things, and here's where my spicy hot nuclear take comes in, where I know a lot of you guys won't agree with me, but after we do those things, I would have no problem with this speech. I would have no problem. She's saying, do not come. We'll continue to enforce our laws and secure our border. We'll discourage illegal immigration. If you want to come in, there are legal ways to come in. That I would be totally fine with if we stop doing those things that I just laid out. And so there's a lot of people who are trying to say, like, this is exactly like Trump. I mean, that sort of sidesteps what these people's position on immigration is. You know, there's a lot of left outrage over what Kamala is saying here, but none of those people ever say what their position on the border is. So is your position that anybody can come and they should be able to stay immediately no matter what? Is that your position? And I'm asking this sincerely, because it seems like that's what's, you know, what's at the core of what a lot of the objections to her speech are. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. And if you're going to take your criticisms to their logical conclusions and you're in favor of open borders, you should say that. And just so you know, if you are in favor of that, that's a phenomenally unpopular position. Because I'm of the belief that a nation state is not inherently bigoted, racist, xenophobic. If you're a country, you're allowed to have borders and you're allowed to protect those borders. Now, should you be very humane in dealing with the flow of immigrants? Absolutely. And on that front, yes, the Trump administration failed colossally and the Biden administration failed colossally, for sure. But I want to know what the position is of the people who are criticizing her on this. Because it seems like, again, at the core of it, a lot of people are saying, like, yeah, anybody who comes should be able to stay, and that's the end of the conversation. And if you disagree, you're kind of bigoted or you're exactly like Trump. Really? Really? I'm sorry, I simply don't agree with that. I simply do not agree with that. I fancy myself relatively moderate on the issue of immigration. We're allowed to have a border. We're allowed to enforce our border laws, but you should have a clear, safe, humane way of dealing with the flow of migrants. And obviously there should be a process for the people who've been here for a long time. There should be a process to get them citizenship. But if you're somebody who just came over... Now, one more caveat to this is the following. If you're talking about somebody who's, you know, seeking asylum, yes, legally you have to let them seek asylum and there needs to be a process to determine if they can stay here. But I do get the sense from a lot of the criticisms from the left that they're of the belief that everybody is just, it's all asylum and that's it. Like there's not a single person who's crossing who shouldn't be allowed to come in. That's the sense I get. And again, I just don't agree with that. I would be fair-minded, reasonable, moral, and ethical in determining who I think deserves asylum and who doesn't. But there are going to be some people who deserve it, and there are going to be some people who don't. And, you know, is it that rejecting absolutely anybody is unacceptable on the left? Because that, I don't agree with that. So, yes, you could hit her with the hypocrisy charge of you're sounding a little Trumpian here. That's fair enough. But what I want to know is, what is your actual solution? Because it's not an easy situation. I don't know, other than the things that I laid out in the crystal clear fashion. Stop supporting coups, end the drug war, stop the disastrous trade deals. Other than those things, what else can we do? What else can we do? Again, set up a more humane, fair process, but if the numbers are overwhelming, there really is no choice in many instances but to say, we can't accommodate a lot of this. What are we supposed to do? You should turn around. You know, and you could give them safe travel and all that stuff, but the solution is definitely not let everybody in no matter what, and that's the end of the conversation. And if that, you know, if that makes me a bad lefty or whatever, so be it. But I don't think that makes me a bad lefty. I think that makes me have a functioning brain. And people who would just argue, throw your hands up and anything goes, I don't think that's realistic. And I also know that's phenomenally unpopular. And you're not going to get anybody with that message. So, you know, but that's my point. My point is, if you actually support open borders, say it and rep the position. And I'd respect it more if you said it. But just know, I don't agree with that. I don't think nation states are inherently, you know, terrible or bad or wrong. I think nation states exist. Honestly, it makes sense for them to exist simply for organization's sake and process sake. You can't just have like a global government and no borders, and then the global government is somehow going to effectively manage billions and billions of people. That's completely irrational, and that's not the way human beings work. The power centers would be so far away from regular people. So, yeah, to have a nation state is not bigoted or racist or wrong. To have different levels of government is good because they're responsive at different levels, whether it's the local government, the state government, the federal government. That's all a good thing. The lines that constitute borders are not like inherently evil. And there are some people on the left who seem to believe that. And so again, what I'm saying is you should voice what your opinion is and rep it up front. Because people could criticize all day. It's easy to criticize. It's easy to criticize Kamala here and be like, you sound like Trump. Fair enough. But what's your actual position? What should the U.S. do? What should the U.S. do? Other than the obvious things which I laid out, do you believe that anybody who comes in, by definition, should be able to stay? And that everybody's seeking asylum, and therefore, we don't even need a process? Is that what you believe? Again, I'm asking sincerely, because there seem to be plenty of people who that is at the core of what they're saying. So anyway, that's my nuclear spicy hot take. I don't think anybody on the left who's criticizing Kamala for this is giving any answers of their own. I just see a lot of like, oh, you sound like Trump, and that's the end of the conversation. But they don't say, here's what we need to do. Again, other than the obvious, which I know all the lefties agree with, end the drug war, stop supporting the coup, stop the disastrous trade deals. Other than that, is the position, let everybody in? I'm curious if that's your position. Because, by the way, as Bernie Sanders pointed out, the Koch brothers believe in that position. The Koch brothers want to do that. He said open borders is a Koch brothers proposal. You know who else believes in that? Economic libertarians, the Ayn Rand types. They believe in that. So you could take that position and you could defend it from you know, a progressive position or a lefty position, of course. But I'm just saying that I don't agree, and the Koch brothers do. So I'll leave it at that. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.